I am going to tell you a story from 2,000 years ago in ancient China. But stay with me till the end, because the implication of the story unsettles most people and what it means for you. Sai Weng loses his horse. Long ago, near the northern borderlands of ancient China, there lived an old man, Sai Weng, known among his neighbors for his understanding of fate. One day, without warning, his horse ran away and disappeared into the territory of the nomadic tribes beyond the border. The neighbors gathered to console him, assuming this loss must surely be a misfortune. But Sai Weng responded calmly, asking a question that puzzled everyone. How do you know this will not become a blessing? Several months later, the lost horse returned, and it did not return alone. It brought with it a fine, strong horse from the nomad's land. This time, the neighbors came to congratulate Sai Weng on his good fortune. Once again, he surprised them by saying, "How do you know this cannot become a disaster?" The family was now wealthy in horses, and Sai Weng's son loved to ride them. One day, he fell from one of the horses and broke his leg. The neighbors returned, offering sympathy once more. And once more, Sai Weng asked the same question. How do you know this will not become a blessing? Soon after, war broke out. The nomadic tribes invaded the border regions, and all able-bodied young men were conscripted to fight. Many were killed, but Sai Weng's son, crippled by his injury, was spared. Father and son survived together. The story ends with a relieving or possibly disturbing thought. Transformation has no fixed end, and its depth cannot be measured. When good fortune becomes disaster, and disaster becomes fortune. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Rose Chen. I teach metaphysics and belief systems, which means I study the strange ways of life that couldn't be explained by science. Long before modern psychology or neuroscience existed, people were already wrestling with a difficult realization. Human judgment is incredibly poor at understanding cause and consequence while we are inside the event itself. What the story was not saying. The story I just told is often misunderstood. It is not saying that suffering is good, or that loss should be celebrated, or that we should passively accept injustice. It is not a call to optimism, nor is it a denial of pain. What it is challenging is something far more dangerous, the human habit of assigning meaning too early. We want to know immediately whether something is good or bad, success or failure, blessing or punishment. We demand a verdict while the story is still unfolding. And when life refuses to deliver one, we experience anxiety, resentment, or despair. The old man Sai Weng in the story is not wise because he predicts the future. He is wise because he refuses to pretend that the present contains enough information to judge it. The metaphysical insight behind it. From a Taoist metaphysical perspective, the universe is not organized around moral accounting. It does not distribute reward and punishment according to human expectations. It operates through patterns, cycles, and transformations that exceed any single moment. Events are not inherently fortunate or disastrous. They are contextual, and their meaning emerges only over time. What appears harmful may redirect life away from a worse outcome. What appears beneficial may introduce vulnerabilities that were not previously present. This does not mean that ethics do not matter. It means that reality is not obligated to explain itself to us in moral language while it is still moving. The Tao is often described as a flow. The flow does not pause to clarify whether its movement will benefit or harm you. It simply continues, and meaning reveals itself only in retrospect. Why this matters now. In modern life, we are under constant pressure to evaluate ourselves immediately. Success metrics, social comparison, productivity timelines, and personal narratives demand instant interpretation. We label events quickly because uncertainty feels intolerable. But psychologically and neurologically, humans are poor judges of long-term consequence. Studies on post-traumatic growth show that many people only recognize the value of disruption years after it occurred. Neuroscience tells us that uncertainty increases learning and adaptability, even though it feels threatening in the moment. What the ancient story understood intuitively is something modern science is still catching up to. Growth often requires disorientation, and clarity rarely arrives on schedule. How to live with this understanding? The practical takeaway is not passivity, it is humility. When something painful happens, The assumption is not that the universe is singling you out. A more useful perspective is to accept that you are inside a longer arc you cannot yet see. Saiwang's wisdom was not optimism. It was restraint. He resisted the urge to lock meaning too early, to harden emotionally, or to mistake temporary conditions for final outcomes. What's the key takeaway from here? Saiwang Shima, Saiwang loses his horse, is not a comforting story. It is a demanding one. It asks you to live without premature conclusions, to tolerate ambiguity, and to accept that life's intelligence often exceeds your immediate understanding. The cracks you carry may not reveal their purpose today, but if you choose to respond with awareness rather than bitterness, with adaptation rather than collapse, those cracks may become the very channels through which clarity eventually arrives. Today, this story is often repeated as a parable of a blessing in disguise, a way to soothe uncertainty and restore emotional balance, and that use has its place. But the Taoist morale underneath it was never meant as reassurance. It was meant as discipline, the discipline of non-attachment to premature conclusions, whether hopeful or despairing. What this story ultimately asks of you is not optimism and not resignation, but restraint, to pause judgment, to live without forcing meaning too early. How you choose to conclude the story, whether as comfort, caution, or challenge, is up to you. Life will keep unfolding either way.